and we're gonna click on Dale and make her the big part of the screen.
Oh.
Is everybody in?
Maybe change the.
There's one of
There we
those,
go.
well, maybe Dale. Up there, up in the right-hand corner, the gallery view. Wow.
Just go back and forth.
It's probably because she was the last speaker.
There's Dale.
Submit all. And then, we can mute him. So right now, the Cook Memorial. Just hit mute, and we'll leave Dale on.
And you might wanna, work on a couple of other
Video,
videos.
yeah, let's take some, like Debbie. There we go.
We are recording. Okay,
All right.
Grace?
I think we're ready.
We're ready.
Well, you want to start on slide it, just in case? Yep.
Okay. Calling this, Teton County Library Board meeting to order at, 8:42. Present are board members Peter Stocker, Nina Lentz, Gail Barber, and Deb Adams is here with us today also. May we have our first item and adopt the agenda?
I'll move it. I'll move it.
Second.
Peter moves, Nina seconds that we approve the agenda. And could I please have a show of hands when we vote today? It's easier than when we've got Zoom people. So Dale, if you'd be sure and do a show of hands when we vote.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion, seconded to approve the agenda. May I have a vote? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, thank you. All in favor, approved. Before we get into the details, I just want to say that this is an exciting agenda. There are a number of new beginnings on this agenda, and it is just exciting. So let's see how the day goes. We'd like to open the meeting for public comment. And I'd first like to remind any commenters to begin by stating your name, and we will allow 10 minutes at the most for public comment. Any comments, please? Are you seeing anything?
No, ma'am, we don't see anybody waving a hand or chat.
We're not seeing any public comment, so we will move on. This month's correspondence has just one letter to which the interim director has responded. And now, moving on to our first new beginnings agenda item, our new director transition. As we get into this today, we are transitioning Nina Lentz out of her job as chair of the director search committee. Nina, we want to take a moment to thank her. Her critical, daunting job is done here, and she has done an excellent job in accomplishing it. She made a huge effort to listen to everyone at the beginning, and that was huge, and helped us all the way through the process. She identified the need for and brought onto the committee outstanding expertise, Judio Patroni, and our experienced library consultant, Maureen Sullivan. Together, Nina and Maureen crafted and conducted an organized selection process grounded in well-considered criteria. And this is all done with thoughtfulness. Every step of the way, our process and what Nina led us with showed thoughtfulness on her part, and it resulted in an efficient, effective process. This was not without personal sacrifice on Nina's part. We thank you for that, Nina, and your family.
No.
So, I would just like to say, Nina, we thank you for being our thoughtful, fearless leader.
Well, Grace, that was a wonderful, thank you. I've never been so seen, thank you. But it was a group effort for sure. Couldn't have done it without everybody here, and I think Maureen and Judy really added to the process. So I would echo your sentiments in expressing our gratitude to them.
Thank you. Any other comments, Dale or Peter? Not at this time? Okay. Okay, so, big agenda item now. We are pleased to introduce the soon-to-be Director of Library Services, Kip Roberson. By the way, his name is pronounced Roberson, as in row, row, row your boat. That was Kip's input. That analogy.
Well, it's because I get called so many things. So.
Okay, Kip was unanimously selected for his qualifications, his experience, and his caring and compassionate nature, all of which we believe will serve our community and library well. Please welcome us Please join us in welcoming Kip Roberson, who's agreed to say a few words. Kip, please.
Well, first I want to apologize. My iPad will not let me change my name, so I'm still representing my current library, I guess. Anyway, I'm Kip Roberson, and I'm honored and excited to be part of this new beginning for Teton County Library. Looking forward to getting settled into Jackson and, you know, just learning about the communities that the library serves, and just helping to, I guess, continue the excellent library services the library system is known for, and finding new ways to serve and grow the library. So I will be in Jackson on June 30th, and I'm very excited to start unpacking and get settled into the job on July 6th. And I welcome, my door will always be open to anyone and everyone who wants to stop in and say hi, and let me know how the library is doing, keep me in check. And I'm looking forward to it. So thank you. And I won't be able to stay for the whole meeting because I do have to still go to my current job. So you may see me disappear here.
Thank you, Kip. The next time you all will see Kip, he will be sitting in the director's chair, where our interim director, Deb Adams, is sitting today. So this will be her last meeting in the director's chair. Okay, thank you. The next agenda item is a brief review of the terms and conditions of Kip's employment agreement. We realize that it's a bit unprecedented to state employment items in a public meeting. Our aim here is to provide facts to satisfy the interest that we know is out there. So we'd like to give you the facts of his employment, and I guess you could call that transparency. The employment agreement terms and conditions are as follows. The start date will be July 6th. His annual compensation will be $118,520. He's allowed relocation expenses reimbursement up to $4,000. And there's a severance package, a severance pay addressing his first 2 years of employment. If terminated without cause within the first year, the agreement provides 6 months' salary and 3 months of COBRA coverage. If terminated in the second year, it provides 3 months of salary. This severance package came about at Kip's request. In addition, Kip is working with Teton County for subsidized housing. We hope all this info is useful or helpful to the community. And that's all we have to say on that, I guess. All right. Another transition item. Peter Stalker will present an item that considers further support to successfully onboard Kip. And I'd like Peter to take it from here, please.
So we have, through the process of the director search process, learned about the skills that Maureen Sullivan brings to our county and our library in terms of her knowledge, her extensive knowledge in the library field. And we recognized that there was a transition period that needed to be overseen between Kip's coming on board and Deb's ending her role as director. And so to cover that period and to include Kip's onboarding transition through the first board meeting in July, we wanted to extend Maureen's contract at her current rate, which is $400 an hour, for up to 20 hours to help in the transition of Kip into the library and to work with Deb on her transition out of the library. And it's really Maureen coordinating between, as Deb is the primary point of contact, but to help Kip in his transition into his new role. So what I would like to do is call for a motion to approve the extension of Maureen Sullivan's contract to cover the period between today's meeting and July 17th, I believe it is the next board meeting.
Yes.
And so I can...
No,
15th.
June, July 15th.
Excuse me.
15th.
And let me read the contract, if you'll, everybody. It will be, she will be paid $400 per hour with an estimate of between 10 and 20 hours at a time. The hours may not exceed 20 hours without written authorization from the library board. So those are the salient terms. So I would like a motion to approve the extension of her contract.
I'll make a motion to approve the extension of Maureen Sullivan contracted per the letter of engagement.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
I guess you should call it, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Robert's
no
Rules of
further
Order.
comment, I assume, so, could we please have a vote on accepting the motion?
Grace, I do have a comment.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Yes, please.
I think we should have some discussion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I have a couple of points. Do we know if Maureen is on here?
She is.
Okay, because her little thing on my computer is bouncing up and down, so I just wasn't sure. I have a couple of problems with this. One, I understand that it says transition, it says onboarding, but I have to say, I don't know what Maureen is going to be doing during this period of time. And I think a few more details would be appropriate. I also think that the points of contact should include the library board because, and you know, within reason, I understand they're on the ground and they talk to each other and that kind of thing. But I do think that while we have Maureen and we have all this expertise, it would be a real waste if the library board is not also involved in this onboarding, because I really believe it can be a learning experience for us. And if we don't know what she's doing and we're not in the loop, I don't see how that's going to happen. So I would suggest more detail in the letter or the agreement, and or perhaps Maureen can speak to that and we can get it on the record exactly what she will be doing. And then I think the library board needs to be included as a point of contact in this for our own benefit, as well as hopefully the benefit of the library, the new director, because Maureen won't be able to stay here forever. So we might as well take advantage of her while we've got her. So if it's all right with you, Grace, I'd like to hear from Maureen.
I believe that's possible. Can we?
We've asked her to join, unmute her video and her sound. We're just waiting for her response.
Okay, they've asked that there she is. Yes. Okay, so Maureen, did you catch all of that?
I certainly did.
Okay, we'll let you take it from here, please.
So I'm going to work backwards and answer the first concern that you have, Dale, and that is, it is primary point of contact. It does not mean that I won't continue to be available or want to communicate with the board members. But in terms of my work, I started it before my earlier work concluded, and it includes these activities. I had a really substantive conversation with Kip about the desire for onboarding to ease the transition. And in that conversation, he emphasized the importance of initially wanting to spend time primarily with the staff. So I then worked with Deb to come up with a draft schedule. I've halted all of that work because we're in an interim period here. But as soon as this meeting is finished today, I will go back to work with Deb to finalize the schedule for Kip's probably first 2, maybe 3 weeks. But the other understanding that has evolved is once Kip is on board, he is probably going to want to take hold of what his schedule would be. And then the other activities that I'm likely to engage in would be working with Kip in somewhat of what I think of as an executive coaching role, to be a sounding board for him, to be someone who can provide guidance at his request. And I also would continue to work with Deb to identify not only the kind of meetings that Kip would benefit from, but what kind of documentation would be useful to him. And one other thing that I think might be of interest that came up in my work with Deb is her desire to spend meeting time with him. And a piece of that would be working with him to engage him in planning for the board meeting on July 15th. And I've also developed a list of individuals and groups that I think would be important for him to spend time with in the first, I don't know whether it's going to be several weeks or the first couple of months of his time. But he's an experienced director. So I'm assuming that once we get into this, he's going to have his own ideas about what it is he would like to do.
And what would be your approach in terms of keeping the library board informed about this? If there's something we need to be doing, if there's some communication we need to be having,
so
how are you seeing that as part of your approach here?
I think I would continue to hold the responsibility to be available to any of you if you have questions, but I would also continue to work, and my work really has been with Grace directly since the selection process came to a close. In that contract, it was Nina who was my key contact, but in the couple of things that have come up in the last 2 weeks, I've gone to Grace as the vice chair, and Grace has taken the responsibility of keeping everyone informed, everyone on the board informed.
So Grace, is that your understanding of how it's going to work? Maureen is going to be in touch with you on the board, and then you will relay the information to the rest of us?
Well, it could be all the board or through the chair. I guess the things that we coordinated to date weren't things that really needed everyone's involvement yet,
But, and as you're aware, Dale, we've had several email exchanges going back and forth in the last 2 weeks that I think Grace initiated to all of us to keep us apprised. I think there are only 2 things that can come through on the onboarding and all. So
I'm thinking real time here, Dale. It would probably be easier to go through the chair and then be relayed. And we're only talking a couple of weeks here, so I would try to do a good job of doing that. So I'd propose that we go with that direction, that it come through the chair and then be relayed to the rest of the board. Does anyone else have inputs on that? Is that okay? Dale, would that be satisfactory?
Yeah, I think that'll work. I just don't want us to miss an opportunity here. And I also want to be sure that in the very important early days that Kip is perfectly comfortable in getting in touch with any board members whenever he needs to. And we would relay that to the rest of the board also, the library board.
I think, Dale, the way I see this is until Kip is physically in the director's chair, which is July 6th, we have a period of time when Kip is not an employee of the county. And therefore, really, we have to look to Maureen, and that's my view, is we're looking to Maureen to differentiate the issues that Kip might have that have to do with staff and the staff issues that may be coming in, such as open positions, people who are leaving, other issues with staff, and that there is and that if there is something that would be rising to a board level, that with Deb's okay, because she's the interim director, we would be informed. After the 6th of July, it's a whole different ballgame. There shouldn't be somebody running interference between Kip and the board if Kip wants to go with us directly, and she would become more of a transition role to, is this a board issue or not a board issue, to help him if he needs that advice. So I view this as 2 phases within the same contract, which is up until a period where he's actually hired by the county, and then from the period of when he's hired by the county, which is July 6th, through the board meeting on the 15th.
Well, and I would urge everyone, too bad Kip isn't here, although I'm sure he's more aware of this than any of the rest of us probably, that we have our resident expert, and I really want us to take full advantage of that before she's out of there, and that's Deb Adams, because she is going to be the most important point of contact in terms of information about the library and the staff and all of that, because obviously she's the one in place and has the most knowledge and the most, at this point, the most recent knowledge. So I don't want us to forget, we kind of, sorry, Deb, but let's get a little more work here before you're done. And I know you're probably counting the days, but.
And Dale, I hope this provides some reassurance. That's how I've experienced my work with Deb through the whole process. But in the last 2 weeks, she and I've been in communication, and it started with the work we were doing to start to outline the onboarding plan, but she's been right there. And I know how ready she is to work with Kip as well.
Yeah.
May I speak, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Concern. I've said it before, I've said it in writing. I have a vested interest in Kip's success. I would like to stay retired this time. But I am committed, and Kip and I have also been in conversation in the last few weeks since his second interview here, and I've reiterated that to him, that My goal really is to make sure he knows the ropes here. I do not want to tell him how to be a director. I simply want to show him how the sausage gets made here. And then he can decide if he wants to keep making sausage or if he wants to make bologna. I don't know which one he wants to make, but that's up to you all to determine that going forward. So I am committed, and I will make sure that he has all the tools at his disposal to know how things run at TCL.
So Dale, thank you, Deb. Dale, I see your point that we all need to be able to take advantage of this process and be aware and involved. Would it be satisfactory if Maureen communicated with the chair, vice chair as appropriate, and we shared that information, and then I think we all just need to work to communicate what we're doing here. I don't think that any of what we're talking about needs to be held privately. So I think that the thing that Peter was getting at that's important is that a number of the things that Maureen will be doing is director to director work and director to staff work that we normally don't get too involved in. So we could be aware of that happening, but we don't need to be in the middle of that. We do need to see more of the board level information. So I would be willing to take responsibility to share that appropriately. Deb, did you have something else to add?
And I'm simply going to add that, perhaps what might be helpful is just seeing the outline of what Maureen and I are putting together for KIPS onboarding. So you just sit there, here's the outline of the topics that we intend to, orient into. I mean, this is a full-on orientation is what this is to this library, this situation. So understanding, so the board can understand, yes, we'll be orienting KIP to here's how the Wyoming library system works, here's how Wyoming library statute works, here's how board meeting agendas get put together here. All of those. So I think if you had the high-level topics, that might satisfy what it is, what the level of curiosity is in terms of how we'll be moving KIP into the position.
So, do we need to add point of contact will include the board when appropriate to the letter of engagement? Is that where we are, that we need to add that statement? And then
I think you could make that a friendly amendment, Grace, if you wanted to, and I'll make it.
Yeah, and I'll second that. How's that, Gail?
Thank you.
It's a good suggestion.
Okay, let me be clear. We just had a motion to accept the letter of engagement with the addition of the board as a point of contact.
Sure.
And Peter seconded that. Okay, any further comment? I'll look to you this, okay. Could we please vote on the motion? All in favor, raise your hand. All right, all in favor, motion passes. Thank you, that was good to air all that. Okay, another transition item. Director Deb Adams will present an extension of her interim director's contract. Deb?
This is simply allowing me to continue to work after June 30th for the onboarding of KIP, sort of as needed. Again, Maureen and I have talked about a tentative schedule, including his first few days of work and getting him ready for the very first board meeting where he'll be in the director's seat on July 15th. So it's an as-needed schedule. Keith and I have not been able to figure out a title for me. So we didn't put one in because I'm not interim director. I'm just
hanging.
Director Emeritus.
Director Emeritus. I don't know. I mean, we thought of a couple of other titles that may not be repeatable, but.
I'd like to ask Mr. Gingrey a question, if I may. He's in the room. Keith, is it possible, because it's on an as-needed basis, I don't see that language in here. Is it, maybe I'm just not reading it correctly, is it possible to just specifically say as needed? Am I not reading this correctly?
I think it does.
It's as needed, will be added.
Oh, depending on needs, I'm sorry. So
we put in the employee's hours
Are
of work
flexible.
flexible depending on need.
All right, and the need is being determined by?
Kip.
I think mostly Kip, what does he need? Does he need,
Okay,
you know,
so
it sounded like Maureen and Deb were gonna talk with Kip and sort of take their lead from him. Okay, what all does he need?
So is it your understanding, Deb, that it'll be on his calling you basically and saying, I need you?
Right, so I mean,
Thanks.
like I said, we have a schedule that we're working on for that first short period of time, and then after that, I think it's sort of a on-call basis, for lack of a better term.
No, I like that,
yeah.
Perfect, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further, I guess we need a motion at this point. Do we have a motion to adopt the addendum number 2 to the interim Teton County Director contract for Deb Adams as documented here?
I will move.
Nina moves.
I'll second that, with thanks, Deb.
Okay, no further discussion. All right, please raise your hands to vote aye. All in favor, motion passed. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the 2 May meeting minutes. Are there any questions or comments on the May meeting minutes? I see no questions or comments. Okay, a motion, we have a motion to approve the minutes from the May 20th, 2021 regular board meeting and the May 25th, 2021 special board meeting. I'll second. All in favor, raise your hands.
Sorry.
All in favor, so moved.
If I may, thanks to our secretary, I know it's a thankless job, but she consistently catches little errors that we make, so thank you, Dale.
You're welcome.
And let's not say it's a thankless job, because I want to thank you too.
Well, Amber does most of the work, and that's the truth, so they just let me help.
Thank you, Amber, too. Thank you all. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Deb, would you like to start with the staff report?
I'm totally going to turn that over to Stella. So Stella, as Administrative Services Manager, has been preparing the financial report because that's a duty under her, and sharing the load.
Appropriate.
Good morning again. No, it's not.
Seriously, so let's just use it.
First of all, do you have any questions for me as written? And then I'd like to also share with you our new process that we're going to be working on regarding unclear checks or outstanding checks. So, it looks like Dale has a question. Oh, Dale?
Dale?
Stella, it's very difficult to hear you. So
you can come over.
Come over here.
if you could maybe,
We're gonna move her to right here.
We're moving there, just a moment.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dale, I was just saying if there were any questions, and if not, I'd like to explain the process that we're embarking on regarding outstanding or unclear checks.
No questions?
Okay. So in my narrative in April that I submitted for the March documents, I mentioned that the library is now going to be mimicking a process that the county follows every year to clear out their outstanding checks. These are checks that have not been canceled. We're going to be embarking upon the same process in December, so we'll be doing this every year in December. However, we decided to go ahead and embark upon the process now just to kind of get things cleared up. So I want to share with you what we did. And when I say we, I really should be giving kudos to Amber because this was really a function of her position in a project that she's worked on for a couple of months. So thank you, Amber. So we originally started with about approximately 52 checks that were identified that had never been cleared through the bank. And this is actually a misnomer because many of these checks had been approved. There were various reasons why we had these checks showing. Some were items that had never gotten voided in QuickBooks. Some of these checks were actually duplicates, and this was verified by looking at previous invoices. Some were EFTs that were entered into QuickBooks as checks rather than EFTs. And then in one case, there was actually a hard copy of a check that was written to an employee. The employee never received the check because the check was actually sitting in their personnel folder. So now that check has been cleared. So ultimately, we went from, again, approximately 52 to really only 3 or 4 checks that really are outstanding. And I should also mention, these are checks that were written prior to 2020. So once Amber determined the various reasons for these outstanding checks, she needed to clear out the bills associated with the checks. And then she needed assistance from Ryan of Teton County to actually void these items in QuickBooks. So he assisted us there. And going forward, what she's going to do is then we're going to bring the remaining 3 or 4 checks to the board to present you for approval. And then what Amber will be doing is she's going to print a copy of the check and the associated bill. And we'll be retaining both of these in a hard copy in a file folder. And then they will be cleared out of QuickBooks. And then she's going to scan this information and present it to Ryan of Teton County. And he's going to create a special account within QuickBooks that will designate any of these former outstanding checks, just so that we have record of it there. So that's essentially what the process has been and what the process will be going forward. Yes.
So will there be a reconciliation in this year's audit to a reconciliation line to account for a duplicate, or are the duplicates already eliminated? So have we, in past years in our audit, not picked this up, but we're picking it up in this year's audit?
Yeah, so they've already been eliminated, so they're now voided out of QuickBooks. So QuickBooks is looking clean, I guess, for lack of another word.
The other part of this process is, again, to mimic the county, so checks that have not been cleared, we're still responsible for a period of time by statute. So what we'll have is a record, so just in case somebody comes back and says, you know, oh, by the way, I never got that check, you need to pay me, we still have a responsibility to pay them. And I believe it's 5 years.
5 years,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So these look like they resulted from several different mistakes, errors, whatever. Are you doing process improvements and looking at what caused these things to happen, or are those just normal level of mistakes and errors going on? I don't have a calibration on that.
Yes, and I want to be hesitant not to, you know, place any blame on any former employee for, you know, missing something. But yes, we are not really looking in that sense in terms of how exactly that happened, because in a way it's kind of hard to know since we're, quite frankly, new, you know, weren't involved in whatever that process was previously. But like I said, I do believe that we've captured all of those outstanding. And again, like I say, fortunately, most of them were really not outstanding. It was just the way they were entered.
Stella, from your perspective, do we have a process now that with you and with Amber and others that are involved that will most likely prevent this from happening in the future?
I would say yes. Amber has great attention to detail, and she's very good at catching mistakes and looking at things. And then also, I think with multiple eyes, such as Ryan's and mine and the directors, I think that we should hopefully be good going forward.
Well, I have to say that in my going through the vouchers and going several times a month and going through everything else, she's captured many of the things that existed as challenges in the past before she got here. So I'm very impressed. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stella. And do we need a motion on that?
I move to approve the terms on the consent agenda with the motion as stated in the respective staff report.
So we just approved all of the financials.
Correct.
Okay, do we have a second for that?
Second.
Any discussion, comments? Okay, please raise your hand if you vote in favor. All in favor, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, Deb's last director, well, kind of. Deb's director's report, please.
I think perhaps I will add a little bit before I speak to the staffing analysis. Just wanted to give you sort of a quick update. Summer reading kicked off here 10 days ago, 11 days, what? And we're already seeing really a significant number of participants, all the way from the preschoolers to adults. The program that we're using for people to sign up has been a lot easier for people to use, and I think it's resulted in more people taking the opportunity to sign up. And this is from last Saturday. Our total number of registrants was already at 653. So feeling really good about that, and people are already starting to get their summer reading prizes. So if you haven't signed up, now's the time. Also wanted to let you know that exam proctoring will be starting back up. So, this comes with getting all of our study rooms back online, and patrons can reserve study rooms online again. We're feeling really good about that. You see what daily attendance is doing. It's starting to look more like the library of pre-pandemic. Not exactly, we don't quite have all the furniture out yet, so it's still encouraging some bit of social distancing. Anyway, to talk about the staffing analysis, y'all had asked some questions about that, and it can be a challenge to try to trace who left when and went where, and then who came in and filled. And for me, it's easier to just look at just FTEs, full-time equivalents, like what are we missing in that arena? And so my approach was simply to go back and look at the current year's budget. What was the staffing we were budgeting for, assuming that the library was going to be fully open, all of the service points would be open, all of the programs would be in effect, etc. So given that budget and and where we are actually now, and we did hold off on filling positions during the pandemic over the winter. In my first month there, we were interviewing for a position, and the manager and I looked at each other and went, maybe we should wait, because we're not sure what they would do. What if it gets worse? It did, right? So we deliberately held off in anticipation that at some point the community is going to get back to green, and we'll start, upping the game for hiring, and that's what we've been consistently doing this spring, is gradually rehiring people. But at this point, we're still down 8.5 FTEs. So that's why the reference desk is not open. We are not fully staffed enough to be able to open that service line. It's why we've had to make this temporary closure on Sunday, none of which we like. We are actively advertising for and recruiting for positions. And as I noted in my response to Jordan Rich, yes, I tend to be optimistic, and if we had a great pool of candidates, it does take about 2 months to get people up and on board. And right now, our applicant pool is as slim as everybody else's in Jackson. I hesitate to say the actual number because it's depressing. So it's going to take us longer than 2 months to fill those positions and to get ourselves fully staffed in order to reopen on Sundays, reopen the reference staff. Managers are being creative. We're taking this opportunity to look at all of our options. So taking what was a part-time library assistant in circulation and carving out some hours to be a library page position, which a high school student can do. Albeit not as many hours and not as many functions, but the materials have to get back on the shelf. One of our most recent hires, we realized that 40 hours was not going to be the ideal situation for her, and we offered her the position at 32 hours, and she accepted, and we're delighted to have her at that. So we're looking, just like every other employer in Jackson, we're looking at what all of our options are to onboard people at the library.
Okay, and Deb, you're doing some appropriate level of coordination with Kip, I believe, so he's aware of what's happening in this arena, and you guys are in concert.
Yes, and he and I just spoke yesterday, and we've spoken before, just sort of letting him know, like, you know, here's where we are, here are the positions that we're already in process of interviewing and onboarding people, like the facilities coordinator. That job offer had already been made. We just made it, there was an accepted offer for our IT administrator. So these were like, we were in the thick of it as you all were even in the thick of director interviews. So those positions have moved forward. We're super excited to get 2 really experienced people in place there. So, and the rest will just, we'll keep working on. And I think he's aware enough of sort of what the level of vacancies are. He will have plenty of opportunity to be part of that hiring process.
Thank you. Deb, I have another question, if I may, another question. On the behind the scenes, County IT is upgrading your wireless system. Is that for improved performance, speed, capacity? Is that an improved performance item that you're doing, or what?
That's what we're hoping for. I mean, we've really been quite impressed with Justin Miller, County IT Manager, his ability to really sort of look out for us. We upgraded the firewall. The county just did an upgrade to their phone system, which of course we're part of. Justin was looking ahead to the wireless system because he knows that it's had some areas where the signal drops out, so they're looking to improve that. So they've really been looking at those bigger picture infrastructure needs and really helping us attend to them.
Yeah, really important subject for the library. Peter, did you have something else?
No, the current state indoor gathering recommendations are gatherings of up to 500 people or 50% of capacity indoors. Where are we in our thinking about the auditorium space?
So management team just talked about this on Tuesday. One half of the auditorium is currently housed in storing furniture. We took it out of the study rooms so that people could use the study rooms because that's quite possibly the biggest demand item. The requests for using the auditorium are still pretty small in nature. I mean, we're not even getting a handful a week. But the other half of the auditorium is now available for public reservation. We just determined that we think capacity, did we think for half the auditorium, I think we said 25, which is not its full capacity, so that's about you know, half of what is typical capacity for half the auditorium.
The auditorium is about 125.
Right, for the full auditorium, but we only have half because one half of it is storing furniture, and so the wall is currently permanently up and will stay up until we're able to clear the rest of that furniture out, put it out in the main body of the library. Does that make sense? Yeah, so we're just, I mean, it feels like every week something new keeps coming back on as we keep, you know, watching what's happening locally and nationally.
Right. Just anecdotally, I think there are some organizations that have talked with me about desiring to get back into their regular business as soon as they can. The geologist is one of them. I think that's one of the larger groups that uses the auditorium a couple of times a month if possible. So to the extent you guys are still working on through this is great, but the messaging is going to be good to have.
One can hope that by the time we get through summer, we get to fall, we could be closer to, you know, our more typical schedule of events. You know, I think I already shared this, all the summer reading adult events are going to stay online. And unexpectedly, it will continue the online option even as we move to in-person programming. Just it's a convenience factor for people.
Thank you.
Further comments? Okay. Okay, moving on to the Library Foundation report. Pauline's last day was, Pauline, the current, or the prior executive director of the foundation's last day was yesterday. And at this point, we have Maggie Schilling sitting in. Oh, there's Maggie. Oh, thank you, Maggie. Welcome aboard. And do you have anything you'd like to say about the foundation report?
Nope, just if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We are in the thick of our own transition here and had committee meetings yesterday and our board meeting next Wednesday. We're really focused kind of on the next 6 months and then beyond, just looking at capacity, staff capacity, and likely doing some visioning as well. So look forward to working with you all.
Okay, well, we look forward to it. Thank you. Let's see, we did have, no, there hasn't been a liaison meeting, has there? Have you been to a meeting? No meeting, so no liaison report?
No, I have nothing to report other than, as usual, Pauline always writes, and I'm sure Maggie will continue the tradition of a very comprehensive report. So I would say look to that.
Okay.
Dale has a question.
Dale?
She may have a friend.
Are you ready to do the Friends report, liaison report, Dale?
Yeah, yes. And I guess I have a question, Grace, because of our new meeting procedure with these other groups. I think my understanding is that the liaison positions are going to go away. However, I did go to the meeting because I wasn't sure what the timing was on that. The Friends did have a meeting on May 26th. We did talk quite a bit about this new suggestion of quarterly meetings with the supporting organizations of the library and the library director and the library board. And the Friends were said they were certainly willing to give it a try, and anything that would make the communication better, they were all in favor of. And they are also looking forward to a busier summer as more Friends return in person to the Book Nook. So some of that is underway also. But perhaps you could clarify for me, Grace, about the timing of the disappearance, shall we say, of the liaisons.
Yes, I was going to cover that later, but I can cover it now just as well. The thinking, I looked at the exact schedules for the board meetings to go for the next month. And what I would propose is that the current liaisons continue through our new board elections meeting on the 15th of July. So you finish out your term as liaison through the 15th of July. Then as part of the elections process and meeting, we typically would assign liaisons for the next year to come. And this year we will not assign new ones. So finish out the term. And I actually looked that up, Dale. The foundation has one meeting between now and that final, or that July date. So Nina, that would be the 23rd, and you would still attend that meeting as liaison. And it looks like there isn't another Friends meeting, so does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
I will not be attending that foundation meeting. They are doing some visioning work and asked to have the liaison not come, which I totally agreed to. So
Okay.
effectively, I've been retired. Twice in one day, so that's fine.
Okay, well, okay. So it looks like that's a moot point, Dale. There's no more meetings between now and the 15th of July, and effective the 15th, our tri-board meetings will take over that liaison communication role. Okay?
That's fine. I thought we were done, but I wanted to be sure.
Well, I'm glad you went this month.
Yeah, I did go.
All right. So thank you. Moving on to budget amendment. Deb, this, or is that Stella? Deb, okay, thank you.
So this is a proposal to amend our current year budget. Primary reason for that is to allow us to allocate funds for the capital reserve, repairs reserve. So, I mean, the agenda is in a particular purposeful order. First, we approve the amendment, and then we can do the allocation. But there is enough of an underrun in personnel for obvious reasons to allow us to do this. I would simply note that we're still underfunded by a year because we did not fund it in the prior fiscal year. I would note that, I mean, when we get to the capital repairs reserve, that, and we'll also be getting the facilities condition assessment, so I think then you'll have better information and tools to figure out how you want to address that going forward. Does that make sense? But first we need to do a budget amendment. Plus it helps us tracking QuickBooks, like why this money's here. The auditors love it when we do this because then they know, oh, the board saw this, approved this, you know, there's just a trail for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I would move to adopt the proposed fiscal 21 budget amendment as presented.
Second.
I'll second. Dale seconded. Any further comment? All in favor, please raise your hand. All in favor, motion passed. Thank you. Moving right along here. Capital repairs reserve allocation, again, Deb.
So this is simply noting that, I mean, there are a number of capital items related to the facility. There's a schedule attached to this in terms of how we currently have figured out the cost of those assets, their life cycle, and what the annual amount is that we need to set aside. Like I said, we'll still be down a year. The reason it's presented for your approval is there's no invoice for this, so there's no voucher. So I need an actual motion in a board meeting for you to say we approve this allocation because we're sending the money into a separate fund. Does that make sense?
We're reallocating.
Right.
We're reallocating cash from a general ledger to the allocated account.
Right. So again, it's an audit trail. It lets the auditors see what we're doing with the money.
Okay.
So I would move to approve the allocation of $138,000, my little eyes here, $2,200 to the capital repairs reserve for the main library, and $11,335 to the capital repairs reserve for the Elsa library for this fiscal year.
Second.
If there's no, seconded by Dale. Any further comment? All in favor, please raise your hand. All in favor, motion passes. Thank you. And Deb, one last time.
So, the commissioners have, we presented our budget request to them, physically and in person. They asked questions at the presentation. No further questions have come from them. The county is currently advertising its budget. The commissioners will actually do their formal approval at the end of the month. But there's been no reduction in the library's requested funds, so I think we're, generally speaking, safe in going ahead and approving our fiscal 22 budget at this time. If for any reason something out of the ordinary happens between now and July 1st, we could address that then. But at this point, I believe the county is positioned that there won't be any changes to our request.
I have one question about our doing this right now, since we prepared this budget at the end of January and early February and submitted it, is I presume our outlook on hiring and the time frame for it has not changed dramatically since we put this into the county. Is that correct?
Could you?
Well, I'm just saying we have assumed a hiring level and a staffing level in our fiscal 22 budget process, and I presume that within the reasonable parameters that we're still confident that that's a good level of staffing.
I think at this point, when we hope that it will be adequate, I think that will be a great thing for KIP to continue to look at, through the year. I suspect you might not know for another 6 months, just till we see what the rest of the summer looks like, what the fall looks like in terms of foot traffic returning to the building, whether that continues to be adequate.
Super. I just want to make sure we had enough flexibility, so if we got slammed and wanted to really increase it. What we did in February was very good in the process. I just want to make sure that you're still comfortable with what we did.
I am, and I think, you always have the option to, make a mid-year budget amendment, course correction. The county does that. We can certainly do that if we need to. And you just continue to look at, in the past, from like December 1, I would just keep projecting personnel costs. Project, where do you think we're going to be? How's it going? Do we need more? What can we do in that arena? So I think you'll just continue to pay attention to it. That's all with the caveat that we actively find people, that there's a bigger employment pool.
Thank you. I move to adopt the fiscal 22 budget as presented.
Second.
Nina seconded. There's a delay on you, Dale, sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, any further comment? All in favor, raise your hands. All in favor, motion passed. Thank you. Okay, board governance. It's good to report that the relationship, the governance relationship with the Board of County Commissioners has been approved by the county commissioners. Both Natalia and Mark Newcomb have agreed to that, and it is on the county clerk's schedule for the Board of County Commissioners through fiscal year 22. The first meeting will be August 30th, and it will be a 1-hour performance review That's performance of the Teton County Library Board. It's not necessarily library itself performance, it's board performance, which of course encompasses some library performance. And we will also introduce Kip Roberson to the Board of County Commissioners at that meeting. I'd like to take this opportunity to say that will be our first, at least our first performance review with the Board of County Commissioners. And included in that will need to be statistics. And that's a statute requirement, that we address statistics in our performance review. We would like to request, Deb, you and the library, prepare your July statistics package, which is on the forward-looking agenda for the board meetings, the statistics package, with partially the thought of that in mind, that this will go on to support the board performance. And we've talked a little bit about this between Peter and I. We haven't talked amongst all of us, so I welcome comments on this. But we're thinking that we don't really want to see or need to see a lot of COVID-related performance where it's just inconsistent for comparisons with the rest of the world. It's our history. It's what happened to us. We don't see a lot of value in that statistic unto itself and that information. What thinking in there is that it would be nice to see what trends came out of COVID that are going to move you into the future, statistical information about trends. Obviously, our digital trend is one of them, and we'd like to see if we're consistent with what's happening nationwide on that. That would be a good one to look at. But in general, Deb, we'd like to request that the library put its heads together and bring to us a statistical package that you think adds value, that talks about where things look like they're going, how we compare to others, and that you not waste time on explaining what happened during COVID. Not necessary. So could I ask for any comments from Nina, Dale? Peter and I have talked about this a little bit. Do you have anything further you'd like to say on that?
Grace, Deb can help me with my memory on this. I believe we do have to have all the statistics for the state library according to statute. But my understanding of what you're saying is the slant of the presentation to the county commission is what you're speaking of.
Yes, Deb has acquainted me with the annual report she sent us copies of that annual report that provides some data to the state librarian, but it's specifically required that the board of directors, in the statutes, that the board of directors include in an annual performance review statistics, financial, and operational items. Those three things are in the statutes. So we're looking at starting in July to see what statistics the library puts forward, and then we'll decide what we need to do to utilize that or improve it for the August 30th performance review.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so Deb, I see everyone taking notes. Thank you. We look forward to whatever you think is appropriate for us to see on that. It's pretty important this year. Okay. All right, so Board of County Commissioners, we're set. We're on the agendas, and you have a schedule attached. And that schedule is accurate, according to what the county clerk has on her agendas. Okay, now moving on to the governance relationship with Foundation and Friends. With many thanks to Pauline Towers-Dykeman and Lori Clark-Erickson, we have completed this package. We've incorporated the comments that resulted in the last meeting. And these This proposal has been reviewed and approved by both the foundation and the Friends boards. The first meeting of this tri-board will occur on September 2nd. That is a few days after our Board of County Commissioners review, and the chair of that particular tri-board meeting will be the chairman of the board of directors of our board, and subsequently the other board leaders will take their turns chairing those meetings. So the first meeting is chaired by the library board. It's following our performance review, and we suspect that'll be a lot of the agenda that we'll talk about. And as we talked about already, the current liaisons will finish their term, and thereafter we will see how our communication works with the tri-boards. And we have put in, check the process for December on how that's working and are these communications effective. Are there any questions about either of those items? Since we have already approved them, I'm not quite sure, we approved them by the board at our last meeting, Deb. Do we need to approve them again?
No.
I don't think we need to approve them again. So those are in your packets, and they are our first governance items that have been approved through the whole system. Yes, Dale? Oh,
No,
okay.
I'm good.
The third item in governance is our policies list. Before I go into explaining that list, I want to introduce a new concept to the board of directors here today. And that concept is board development. It has been suggested that maybe we could use some board development. And I think all of us are smiling and we're willing to do so. That is pretty self-explanatory, I think, and a subject that we should take up when we have a new chairman and we have our new board member on board. So I want to introduce the concept that in the next in the first half of fiscal year 22, that we will be looking at a board development process that will be led by the new board and the new board chair. And I don't know that a lot of discussion is appropriate today. If anyone has any comments, Nina, no comment. Peter, comment? No. Dale, question, comment, or we'll wait for our next meeting to discuss? Okay, so board development. And the reason I bring that up is when you look at our policies list, this is our potential policies, governance policies list. We've completed 2 items, and there's a number of items to go, and looking at those items, they look to fall naturally out of, as a product of a board development process. So I've labeled those as that, and I've resorted the potential policies list, and that is your second piece of material in the board package, which is this TCL Board Governance Policies, Processes, Procedures, and Agreements list. And included in that list as are items that we can consider when we start talking about board development. And as far as I can tell, that's all we probably need to do today, is say that we're going to be talking about that in the future. Okay, that gives us a nice segue into our next agenda item, which is our new board member onboarding. And Dale has agreed to take that responsibility, and she's going to tell us about it now. Thank you.
Thank you for your organization of all that material, Grace, that we just discussed. It helps to have it all together. I have gone through our board handbook, and I actually believe that it is a good board handbook, and we should continue to use it. I think we can make a few changes, and I have been talking to Deb about this because I would need the help of the staff. And we are taking a look at the material to make sure it's current. We're also taking a look at the way the tabs, the divisions of the document are laid out, because I think there's, and Grace, I believe you mentioned this also, I think there's room for improvement there. But I think the basic document is pretty darn good. There are a lot of references to state library information sites, which I think is very helpful to a new board member. And I would like to add one small addition to the process, which is I would suggest that pretty quick after we get the new board member, who will come on July 1st, so hopefully within the first couple of weeks, that there could be with the director, and at that point it will be, we should do it after the 6th of July, so it'll be the director, the new board member will be working with, that there's a short informal tour done of the library, that the chairman of the library board, and we could actually have 2 library board members join if we wanted to, do a walk around, that the library director does some introductions in terms of the back of the house areas and the front of the house areas. And I'm not looking at this as a formal type presentation, but just whoever's there that day, and just a short interaction. But I think it would really help to personalize the experience with the library, and a lot of board members haven't ever seen the back of house areas, and I think that would be a good thing also. So I would like to suggest that we add that in this upcoming process.
Hey Dale, would it be reasonable also if Maggie is available to have, since they are co-located, to have a short introduction to the foundation and what the foundation does? The tour of the foundation offices doesn't take very long, but and the other thing that I have been remiss in is I've been through the back of our main library building multiple times, many times. I have yet to be there in my role as a board member to the Alpha branch. And I do think we've been remiss in the COVID time, of not having a board meeting up there. And I would love to, probably not on the 6th of July, but sometime in the summer, which is a great time to go over the past. I'd like us to consider having an orientation to the Alpha Library branch as well.
No, I think that's a great idea, Peter. And of course, we can do that whenever it's convenient for them, you know, for us to come. Right. I think I think that's a good idea about the foundation. And I think it would also be appropriate to have the Friends president come, Lori Clark Erickson, and do just the short course on the book nook and the sorting room and those kinds of things too, just to have a well-rounded presentation for the new member.
Absolutely. That's great. I would definitely like that.
And the goal, of course, is to have this thing done before July 1st, so that the library board can take a look at it. And I would probably just send it out online so that you could, and denote the changes. So, because I know that it's a lot to go through. So that you could do a review before traditionally we have printed it. And I'm of 2 minds about that. I'd actually like to wait and ask the new board member what they would prefer, if they would you know, because not everybody is into all this paper. So, so that's kind of how I'm thinking about that, but I will certainly get a review copy out before the 1st.
Okay, so you're planning to have an online, you're planning to have an online version that we'll maintain online? It'll be available online at TCL website?
I actually think that would be easier.
I agree.
But I need to talk to the staff about that because they are the ones that support this stuff. So, and I have been talking to Deb, and I will continue to do so. And you know, they're going to give me good advice about what's the most efficient way to proceed.
Okay, so any other comments, Nina? This sounds so. Our new board member will also need to be acquainted with the election process, which we will talk about next. Is there any further discussion on the onboarding process for the new board member? No further discussion? Okay. I love to talk about this next subject. Okay, Keith has been very helpful in explaining how we will conduct our next board officer elections on July 15th. To begin with, the board officer descriptions that will be the officers that we will be electing will be the handbook descriptions as they stand now. We'll go with those for this meeting, and then as part of this board development process, it could very well be that we want to modify those. And all of the readings I've gotten say that we can do that. So we will go with the board handbook descriptions of the jobs, of the officer roles, and we will conduct the election at the beginning of the board meeting. Nominations, we will accept nominations, and you can nominate yourself. Nominations do not require a second. We will vote with a raise of hands, and the most votes wins. If there's only one nomination for a position, then someone may make a motion to unanimously elect that candidate. We only have one candidate, and we do need a second on that. Okay, the first position that will be elected will be the chair. And we are hoping that Mark Hendrickson, our chairman of our board, will be with us to conduct the beginning of this election. And to pass, there's actually a gavel here that we can pass, to pass the gavel. I'm sure Mark would love to be here, and we'll hope that he'll be here to do that. So the first office that we'll elect is the chair, and go through the process of requesting nominations, voting, or making a motion. And that chair will result in TBD, someone here maybe, I don't know, maybe someone not here, has been duly elected to serve as the Teton County Library Board Chair for the year to come, and that is effective immediately, and the new chair will conduct the balance of that July meeting. And that's about all we have to say at this point. Any questions? Any inputs? Oh my gosh. Okay, that was for information, and we'll go through that again at the beginning of the next meeting. And we'll also need to make sure, Dale, I'll email you that summary, or I'll email it to everyone. But we want to make sure that the new board member has that summary in hand when they come on board too, so that they know what's going to happen at that board meet, at the July board meeting. The summary of the election process. I'll send that to you so you can make sure that gets to the new board member. Okay. Final agenda item, payment of library vouchers. Peter, please.
I've gone through the vouchers. We had two things of note that I'd like to just bring up to the board. The first is we had month of May included Maureen Sullivan's contract and a payment to her of $12,800. The balance of her contract, I think, has been paid out for the search and was capped at $20,000. The second is there was a voucher paid to Grace Robertson for $383, I believe, and that is a reimbursement to Grace of expenses she incurred on behalf of the VITA program. I think it had to do with refreshments and other things for snacks for the volunteers. So just in transparency, we do have a voucher to one of our own board members, but that's what that was for.
And I think the foundation reimburses that.
I think the foundation does reimburse that, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any further comment? I move to approve the payment of library vouchers.
Second.
If there's no further comment, please raise your hand to vote in favor of approving the library vouchers. Okay, I'll approve. Motion passed.
I will move to adjourn the meeting.
I will second that. Comments? All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passed, all in favor. Thank you. Thank you for a long meeting.